Hello, it's me, and now we're going to go for the next part of our 4x4 modification slash supercube concepts here. So in the first part one, we talked about the application of 4x4 strategies to a 4x4 supercube. And we also discussed how you get different parities with this based on known laws of the cube. Rule number one is you can only do an even number of swaps. So you can only swap these as a group or these individually, not by an odd number of just one. You actually have to do two. Rule number two is you can only rotate one center 180 degrees or two centers with a total of 180 degrees, but never just one center 90 degrees. And rule number three is that you can't flip just one piece, but you can flip two pieces. Now we also found that you can mix and match these rules. I can do an odd number swap as long as I also put with that maybe a 90-degree rotation. And this came into importance when I was doing supercubes, because it turned out that there's some rotations of the center that became important that didn't become important here. So as you recall in this Tetrachus puzzle, this great one over here, when we were doing the last two centers, and this is true for any 4x4 mod that you should have, if you have one area that needs to do an odd number swap, if just these two are swapped, it means that you have a center that's rotated by 90 degrees. So that's a way of looking at that. So how do you translate the process of 4x4 mods to something like this, the Megamorphix? Now the main difference between this, and the reason why this kind of a modification is a step up in terms of difficulty, is because you now have equivalencies of centers. With all of these, every center had exactly one place where it was supposed to go. With here, well, I've got multiple centers. These guys can all be swapped, which means I could be in a situation where two of these, where one of these centers may be rotated 90 degrees, but I wouldn't know it because something that might need to be swapped was actually swapped out with another center. So what do I mean by that? Well, we'll go through the scramble and solve of this and see if we can apply some of our four-layer concept with this. Now this is one of my first modifications that I had, made by Traiphum. This I've had for a long time, so it might seem a little rickety at first, and I think this was made by an East Sheen puzzle. So these are all corners, these guys here. These collectively are edges, and of course these are the centers. So turn one corner into another, and I can continue my turning and shape-shifting. Now what I'm doing is I'm just focusing on where the centers are. So now I can mix the centers up, and I'm going to continue doing my shape-shifting Megamorphix scramble, and then come back to it with it completely out of sorts and see how we can apply some of these laws of the cube to recognize parities and see how this stands up differently with this kind of modification compared to the others. So, abracadabra. Okay, not too shabby. So remember, before embarking on any mod solve, just get your perspective. Understand we're really just dealing with a modified version of this, which actually has become something like this of sorts. Right, but bear in mind, here's our centers, here's our edges, and here's our corners. All the edges pretty much are going to look the same when they're assembled, but you do have corners of different shapes. Some of them look like this, some of them don't. So this is already in, so we might as well start working on this center over here. So in the case of the Megamorphix, we're going to be lining these two up here. Then the next is going to be the red color and the red and yellow color over here. So I have the red and yellow over here, so I've got a bunch of reds to choose from. The initial solve of puzzles like this is actually quite simple because I've got a lot of different equivalencies. I don't have to hunt around for a lot of different pieces. I don't have to put this one in here, I can put this one in here. So I'm just going to line it up and move it in without messing up, say, this guy over here. So I'll just turn this to the side, and then we'll just move this in. Once we've done that, we can put it in with its brethren over here. So turn this like, and then this will just plop into over here. Okay, now bear in mind this is a 4x4, so I have to define where the centers are going to be. I know since this is red, it's going to be another red one over here. And here's an example of, well, there's a couple examples where you have corners that have different colors, but it's going to be another red one, suffice it to say. And I can actually move this corner out over here. Now these corners are going to become very important later regarding orientation of these centers. So I'll move this up over here, and as you can see, this is yellow, this is red. So this guides me as to what's supposed to go over here. So this is going to be green and yellow. I already have that over here, green and yellow. So I'm just going to keep following suit, find the other green and yellow, and instead of matching it with a yellow, I'm going to match it with a green. So we're right over here. So find any old green to use, as long as I'm not pushing this out. So I could use this one. So turn this like so. Move this around here and turn this in. Okay. So now that I have these in here, I'm just going to line this up. So eventually this is going to be the yellow side over here, the yellow pseudo side, so to speak. So I'm just going to put the other yellow one in. Here's the yellow and white. And we'll just go ahead and match this up to pretty much anything. Could be yellow, could be white, so I'm just going to move this over into here. So actually we'll turn it the correct way. Turn, 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 and move it in. Turn and move it out. Okay, so now I'm just going to find the other orange and white and move the other orange one in so it's here. So I'm going to move this in conjunction with that over there. So turn. Now 4-layer modifications are among my favorite ones to use because it's not as exhausting to put everything in. Before you know it, things are in pretty quickly. But it does give you a taste of the more difficult of the modifications. Turn and shift it back. Alright, so now I'm going to get this one in here, so I'm just going to move this out, double turn, and move it in. Okay, so there we have three sides, three centers rather. We'll move them in configuration, like so, and now we just move on. We happen to have this corner that's lining up the green, the yellow, the red, so we know that over here is going to be green and red. So that's what I'm going to put in. This one goes into here. So let's take this in a couple of steps. I'll move the green one in, like so. Turn it and move it back. The other green and red will be found here, but because I've already lined up a green over here, I'm going to line up a red this time. So I'll move it into configuration. And turn it in, turn, and bring it up. Okay, this just needs to coincide with this guy over here. So far, nothing too different than what I've already done. No surprises. As a matter of fact, it's even easier because I have so many centerpieces to choose from, so many equivalent pieces to choose from. So this is sort of a kinder, gentler way of doing it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, we now have 4. So you can see very quickly we got to the last two centers. Now here's the deal with this. This accidentally happened to get solved, but is it appropriate? You can see that it's completely solved. Didn't mean to do that, but let's see what happens. So this is in over here. Let's move this into the proper place. Okay, this moves over to here. Now this looks like it's all nice and solid, but it's not where it's supposed to be. We want the green one down here. So in reality, this I know doesn't belong here, it belongs over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get one side. Now, it doesn't matter that I accidentally put this one in. Solve this the same way I did with this last center over here, the last two centers. The way that I'm going to do this is I'm just going to put one center in. I'm just going to solve the last center pretty easily. So I'm just going to move this in here, double turn, and move it back. Now I'm going to put this one down into here too. So move this in, double turn, and move it back. So there we have it. Now what I want to do is I want to get these two in as well. So now picking it up from here, I just have to put this last one in. Now I see that these two are correct on the bottom, and these two need to be swapped here. But because I have another white one here that I can use, then I can kind of cheat a little bit. What I can do is I can move this over here, and I can 3-cycle this. By 3-cycling this, it looks like it's going to 2-cycle it. It looks like it's going to swap these two. So if I put this like so, and I do the algorithm, actually I'd have to hold it over here. Anyway, move it over here. And then move this over here. Basically what's going to happen is this will come over here and be none the different. This will come here and this will come here, so that'll flip these two around. So let's say we do this. We're looking at trying to get all these centers in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that 3-cycle here. Do a R UI LI U RI UI and L. And then we can get real proud of ourselves because we see that we've got all of our centers in. But that was a little too easy, wasn't it? Because remember, we came across situations over here where these two had to be swapped. I kind of cheated a little bit because I was in the same situation. And remember, if I had one situation where I just had to have one swap, it meant that I had to rotate another center by 90 degrees. Well, in this case, I didn't have to do that because I used equivalency of a side. So that seemed a little too easy. Well, let's go back, because how do I know I didn't rotate something by 90 degrees off? I wouldn't know that because notice when I had to swap these two, instead of doing the right swap, which showed me that one center was turned 90 degrees off, I simply took another equivalent center and put it in there and kind of cheated a little bit. But by doing so, I did not rotate a center by 90 degrees. So again, just to reiterate, over here when I had two that were swapped, that told me, because of the law of cubes, that I must have had another center that was rotated off by 90 degrees. And I would put these in by flipping these and at the same time causing a flipping process of this. That might have been the case in this particular case. I might have had to do that, but I kind of cheated and didn't do that. I just put another equivalent side in, which means I was able to put this center in without rotating this 90 degrees. And that, in essence, is the potential parity you could be running into when you have these 4-layer mods with centers that are equivalent. So let's see if that's what happened. The only way to know that is to see if the corners can be put in. So let's go ahead and put corners in. I'm going to use this as the top side here, since that's what I started with. And I'm just going to put all my centers in so that they're coordinated correctly. So putting the greens over here. So this is actually what it's going to look like with all the centers coordinated correct. Okay, so I'm going to find the little green triangle and put it here. Now there's no way to avoid this. You have to do this process with your Megamorphix. If you don't, you could end up having to do it at the very last step, which is painful. So this is in, this is in. And now I need a little brown triangle, which is over here. So turn, turn, turn. So we're good here. And now this guy, I need the brown, green, and white, which is here. Doesn't matter if it's oriented right, as long as I put it in the right place. So turn, turn, and up. And it just happens to be correct. Now we can see how this shakes out. I'm going to line this up at the proper place here and see which centers are where they need to be. This is where it needs to be. yellow, white, and green. This is yellow, white, and green. This is where it needs to be, and uh-oh, this isn't, and this isn't. So this isn't going to work. This is how it's going to end up looking when you have a parity situation, and I don't just mean this particular puzzle. I also mean, I also mean it in any other type of four-layer modification that has the same process where you have equivalent centers. So if you're solving it and you end up with this where you have two corners that are in but two corners that are out, this is not a corner parity because you don't get corner parities. This is a problem with center rotation, because in reality what had to happen is that instead of it being lined up like this, the corners, if they were calibrated correctly, would have worked a lot better like this, where this is in, this is out, and this is out, which means this is off by 90 degrees. If only I can turn this 90 degrees, then I would be okay. When you run into this process, don't stress about it too much. Just understand that something has to rotate 90 degrees, and it doesn't even matter what. But what I would do at this point is I'm going to take it back to the centers that we were dealing with, which is these two. And I'm just going to do an exchange. I'm going to do a simple exchange of two of these. Once I do that, things will be equilibrated, and I'm going to want to get this back. So let me show you what I mean. You have a situation where you have parity over here. Rather than try to keep track of what's supposed to go where and turn this into configuration and turn your brain into knots, just take two centers that are equivalent and quite simply swap them. So I'm going to go ahead and swap it. This will come here, this will come here, and this will come here. This will still be solved. Actually, alternatively, if you want to make sure that this is still the dependent one over here, I'm going to do the swapping, but I'm going to use this one as a top. It really doesn't matter, but just because I was using this one as kind of the dependent one, and I don't want to destroy this one as of yet, I'm just going to move this one up to here. And I'm going to swap the white ones from down over here. So again, I'm only doing this because this was my last layer, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and swap these two. This will still be in, but this one will be flipped. So we're going to do our UI LI U RI UI and L. Okay, so let's consider what this did, and we can move this back where we wanted to. But basically, this was rotated fine. So I mean, this is still in, but this guy needs to be swapped. So now what I have is I've uncovered the actual situation that should have happened. We should have had a situation like this where these two need to be swapped. Now that you've done that, now that you've swapped two centerpieces, understand that's all you needed to do to recalibrate things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the process of swapping these two. And I know the technique already, which will swap these two and at the same time rotate this by 90 degrees. And it really doesn't matter which one you rotate. We're going to be recalibrated at that point. So we're going to go ahead and swap these two by the same technique we showed in part 1. And with each one, we're going to cause a swapping and a scooching as we rotate these 90 degrees. Doesn't matter in terms of what's been equilibrated. So the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to here, move this to here, and move this to here. Now, it might get a little confusing because these two are the same. So I'm just going to take this out of alignment over here, and I'm going to do it with this one at the top. That way I don't get confused as to what's what. So the first step, this will come here, this will scooch over to here, and this will come down here, ready to come up over to here. So that's going to be the first step. So same algorithm. R UI LI U RI UI LI. Okay? So just to once again review what I just did, this piece here scooched over here, what was here, which was this guy, scooched over here. The one that was here was brought up over here, and the one that was over here was brought down to here. Now this guy has to come into where this is. So I'm going to move this into position over here so that this is in my ready position to be swapped out. Then I'm going to move this here. Doing it again, we'll scooch this guy here so it lines up with this. This will come over here, so it'll be our first swap, and then this will come down to over here. So once again, do our algorithm. Now remember, this algorithm is done 3 times and 3 times only. Turn, 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 and down. And one final time, we'll do our final scooching. So what I'm going to do is move this into position here. And now this comes over to here, because now what's going to happen is this will come over to here, which will be the final swap. This will scooch to here, and this will come down to here. Originally it was here, so it's going to scooch up to here. So go ahead and do it. Turn, turn. So what I'm doing is I'm just resetting this back to where it would have been had we not had equivalent centers. Turn and turn. And the good thing about this strategy is now I'm done. Now it's been re-equilibrated. All I had to do is switch 2 of these whites, allow one to be swapped out, and then swap it back in while rotating an entire circle, an entire center. So now what I can do is see if my evil plan worked. So this is in, this is in. We're going to have to get these guys in once again. As you can see, this is perfectly fine now. Yellow is here, this is fine, and this is fine. So you can see the shell is here. So the way to approach 4-layer modifications that are of the kind which is more complex than this and more complex than this, the next step up, first off, recognize that you have equivalent centers. When you find yourself off with the corners, it means one had to be rotated 90 degrees, but you did not have an early warning system. You didn't have an early warning system because you took the easy way out and tried to put in a center that was equivalent to something else. And when you see that, don't sweat it. Just swap 2 of your centers, which will put one of the swap 2 of the center pieces rather, which will make one of your centers have 2 pieces that need to be swapped, and go ahead and do that swapping while rotating another center, and you'll be fine. So the next step is edge placement, and in terms of perspective, if you can imagine, these edges are like these guys over here. I'm going to assume knowledge of how to do a 4x4 because edge placement is the same. Just remember what's in front of you and what's at the sides. So looking at this over here, I've got a green and a yellow. So what I'm going to want to do is position them. Now I don't care about the centers at all. I know they're equilibrated. They're equilibrated not just in terms of where the centers are supposed to be, but they're also equilibrated regarding where they are oriented with each other. That's a kind of equilibration you did not have to do with this one, and you did not have to do with this one. Here you did have to equilibrate them regarding rotation of each individual centers, but we've already done that now that we've put the corner in. So now I don't care where they turn because they're all coordinated and equilibrated with each other. So this coming down here, remember this is the front part here, just like this is the front part here. And if you wanted to move this center down to here or this corner piece down to here, you would do a turn and then do your replacement like this. Something like that. Anyway, so it's the same kind of thing. So this is the front side, so don't get confused. Remember your center is facing you. This is to the left. Move it down to meet it like this. Bump it out of the way. Here, replace it with this guy. So turn, turn, and up. And then we just follow suit. We continue to do that throughout the entire puzzle. You can tell where things are supposed to be basically by the shape. So we can see if there's something quick that we can find. This will come in with this one over here. So I'll move it like so, move it like so. So this is going to move down to here. This will be the sacrificial lamb over here at the top. So move it down to meet it. I'm going to substitute it with this guy now. So bop this out of the way. Turn this down. move it back, and bring it up. So now you can see we have this. The fun thing about doing 4-layer modifications is, unlike other mods that are many more layers, this actually goes pretty quickly. So you can find yourself not kind of getting immersed into a more cumbersome process where this takes so long. Not that it's not fun doing it, but sometimes it's nice to just have it go quickly. Okay, so are we at the last 2 edges? And yes, I think we are. The algorithm to get through this, again, assuming knowledge of a 4x4, this is edge placement. This is going to swap these two, but we don't want to do that. We need to put the same colored sides or the same colored portions right across from each other. So we're going to move this here, and move this here. Okay, so what this algorithm is going to do is this will come here, this will come here, and everything will be swapped. So I'm going to turn it like so. Just bring it in across from each other. Then we do the algorithm R, UI, F, rather FIU, RI, F, and then swing it on back. And with a little luck, everything is fine. So this is now reduced to a master Pyromorphix. The Megamorphix has been reduced. Or has it? Remember, being a 4x4, just because we reduced it doesn't mean we reduced it in a way that could be scrambled in this way if it started out as a master Pyromorphix. So we might have the normal 4x4 parity that can happen with this. But we've kind of taken the supercube aspect of it out. Well, not really. But we'll go ahead and get our sides here. So the way to proceed from here is we're going to say that this is our center. We'll match up all the centers with each other so that the colors match up. So these are all in. And now we can just do this based on putting corners in. So I need to find a green corner here, find one on the bottom. If I can't find one, then I won't look. Other green ones over here. So I can actually move this to the bottom. Turn. Well, let's look for a red one instead. I think I'll find that easier. I need to put a red one over here. So turn. This one doesn't fit. This one fits. So now I can move it in. So we're good over here. Find another red one. Well, here's a red one here, but that doesn't seem to fit so good. So let's see if I can move this one in. Turn it in over here. And then we just move it in. All right, we're cruising. Now we have to find greens. Here's a green here. I think maybe I'll have better luck moving the green one into here. So remember, I keep in mind that this is my side, I'm getting my cross. That's basically what I'm doing. By getting my cross, I'm putting in the edges. The edges articulate one center with an adjacent center. So I'm looking for a green one that comes into here, which could be any one of these. They're all equivalent as far as I'm concerned. So whichever one is going to fit flush is the one I'm going to use, which is this one here, and just bring it back. Okay, now I'm looking for the other green edge. Here's another green edge over here. Might be another one that I can use right over here. So let's bat this out of the way. Move this down, this center down over here. So understand, if it's a little confusing what I'm doing, this is all 4x4 techniques. You've got to get your perspective with this, or it's not going to make sense. So here's our center here. Here's our cross. This is just like the cross over here. Looks like that was up near pop. Now that I have the center, now that I have the cross here, I'm going to go ahead and put in my corners. The one that is surrounded by green centers is going to be a tiny green triangle. Is it down here somewhere? Looks like it's over here. So instead, let's move to over here, and I'm going to put this tiny green red triangle here. Now, you may be asking yourself the question, is there a consequence to the fact that some, I think I said center, I meant corner. There are some corners that are one color and other corners that are more than one color. Will that have significance? And the answer is yes, it will. And to those who know what I mean, know exactly what I'm talking about. So put this in here and bring this up. So now this is in. That probably batted this little triangular corner out. This little triangular corner will come in, which is buttressed between these three green centers. So turn this down, bring it in, bring it up. So you can see we're building our side here. Now I'm looking for the corner with three colors. In this case, it's going to be red, green, and yellow right over here. So I'm just going to put this in where it's supposed to be. Right over here and up. So this is where it needs to be. And finally, remembering that this is my side here, green, red, and white, pay no attention to this. It's actually this one, but we just have to turn it correctly. Okay, so believe it or not, we now have the first side. So this is our first side. This is where your perspective is going to get a little difficult. This is where it's going to get skewed. The way that I do the beginner's method is now that I have the top side, I turn it upside down, and now I'm going to put in the edges. So the edges, these are all edges, these are all centers. So where's the red edge? Here's a red one over here. Bear in mind how it has to go. Notice this one has a small side down and the large side up. So this is not going to come down like this because the large side will end up down and that's not going to fit. So I'm going to move this over here and bring this down to here. Turn. So this algorithm, again, this is beginner's method, and I'm going to put this down from the front. This is going to be my front, and this is going to be down to the left, and this is the left side here. So if this is the top, this is going to be UI, LI, U, L, U. This is my F here now. F, UI, FI. Now don't be frustrated if it's hard to keep your perspective. It was the same way with me. You'll adapt to it. I've just been doing this long enough to where I do have a pretty good sense of where things go. It's the same algorithm. This is the fat end down here, fat end over here. You can see this fits snug. So same thing. Same algorithm. Turn, 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 turn. And here we go. So now you see that that's good over here. So this is the fat end down, so I'm going to move this here and move this in over here. And in this case, to move it to the right, remember this is my F move. So we have U, and this is R. If you ever get lost, just look at the center. This is the center right to the right, so this is the one I'm going to be moving. R, U, I, R, I, U, I, FI, UI, F. Okay? That should have batted out the green, and now I can move the green one in over here. This is right side up. You can tell because it fits flush here. I can tell if this is right side up if I move this to where it's supposed to be and see if it fits. So I'm going to move this down to here and I see it fits. Okay? Which means that these both are right side up. What about this? Well, where is this supposed to be? Now you can see that these are both right side up on its respective side. So that way I know that we're right side up with this. So I'm going to hold it over here and do R, U, R, I, U, R, to U, R, I, and in one fell swoop, we've got all these in. Now picking it up from here, it looks like everything is solved except for this piece. This has been rotated 180 degrees. Now how can a corner do that? Because that goes against the third law of cubes. I can't rotate one piece without rotating something else. Well, to those who have an understanding of what I've been talking about, you'll know that these have equivalencies. This could be rotated by 180 degrees also. But two of these are rotated wrong, this one and one other. So what I'm going to do is, to finish this up, is hold it to where I have a center over here. This is going to be to the right, and I'm going to do my RIDIRD moves in order to rotate this correctly, and then do a U move and just start arbitrarily rotating this guy until it's in. So we have RIDIRD, RIDIRD. So now this is in, and you might think, oh well, we ruined it, but not really. Remember, keep this in front of you, do a U, and just hold any one of these triangles, one of these corner pieces, once again to the right, and turn this around until everything is solved. RIDIRD, RIDIRD. Now you can see it didn't quite work, so I have to do it again. RIDI, and you just keep doing this, and eventually you will get it in place. One more RIDIRD should do it. RD, and sure enough, it does. So your Megamorphix is now solved. Thanks for watching.